Immersion is a deep mental involvement for a given activity. It's generally considered a good thing, with everyone wanting to play the latest and greatest immersive video game. But what makes something immersive, and how is immersion integral to how successful your game may become? You can become immersed in virtually anything, driving, playing a sport, or an instrument, but today's topic revolves purely around video games, how people interact with virtual mediums, how immersion feels, and what goes into making something immersive. Picture yourself playing a video game, or more important, getting ready to, putting on your headset, unmuting your mic, and picking up your controller. Unless you're just starting out, you do not look at your controller when you make every input. That's just impractical and inefficient. You're trying to play a game, not worry about how your hands are placed on the magic plastic remote. The first step towards achieving accurate immersion is good control. You want everything to make sense. You want the most used features to be the most accessible. For instance, in a first-person shooter, fire your gun by physically pulling down on the trigger. You want major combat features to be near each other, such as throwing a grenade by pressing a shoulder button. Issues like these aren't as major on console, as controllers are designed to be practical and ergonomic. So from now on, this section will focus most on the keyboard and mouse players out there. Standard full-size keyboards have about 104 keys, although this number does vary depending on your location. When you factor in the usual 5-button mouse, that's over 109 keys you can press. However, none of them are all that practical. Sure, you want a lot of different functions, but often you want to care about practicality and ergonomics rather than assigning a map button to the M key. The most used buttons are normally your directional movement controls, W, A, S, and D, and spacebar for jumping. At the absolute maximum, you should have your finger reaching 3 buttons in any direction. That places the limit row as B, H, Y, and 6. That leaves you about 30% of the keyboard. Build your most commonly used buttons around your directional movement keys. For instance, use interact as E or Q, reload can be R, and G can be a grenade, and so on and so forth. Personally, I would shy away from using the least commonly used functions on their corresponding letter key, so no map on M. Instead, I propose a sublayer where all of your least common functions are held. I propose that caps lock summons this submenu shortcut. This is where you can hold all of your least popular inputs such as quick access to the map, a leave game button, audio and visual settings, and more that you generally use around once or twice per game session. You want them in reach, but not so reachable where you can accidentally press them. If done right, you can easily chain together combos making your controls feel natural, intuitive, and most importantly, immersive. Think of it this way, your commonly used controls are on a tool belt, easily accessible no matter wherever you are. The functions in your submenu are contained in your backpack, to be used occasionally.
Nobody gets out of here, whether alive or dead.
I'm in for it.
Visual and auditory cues are important to sustaining flow in your game. You don't want a silent experience. You want unique music that fits every tone perfectly. You want sound design that not only makes sense, but sounds realistic for the scenarios you encounter. You want every last bit of gunfire to sound natural. Take Destiny, a series infamous for a whole bunch of things, but famous for its incredible gun design, combining your arsenal of insanely overpowered space guns with class-specific abilities, grenades that can entirely change how you play, movement that feels natural and makes sense for what class you're in, and the amazing sound design on the weapons. When combined, you have a masterclass example of what you should do. Sound design can make a world feel alive. If the enemies interact to your experience, the music changes depending on your scenario, and things sound as you'd expect them to. Immersion is made. Ghost Runner is a masterful, albeit short game that keeps you on edge the entire time. The precision required in this game is near unmatched. In the final scene, where you run a gauntlet to protect yourself from the architect trying to take control of your head, you are immersed in a rhythmic sequence in which your abilities, movement controls, and the synthy cyberpunk sounds are on full display. And creates a beautifully immersive sequence. This same thing applies to all of the bosses in the game. The Tom boss is one of my favorites in all of video games for that very reason. First, you're fighting an elevator. Who doesn't want to fight an elevator? Second, the stakes feel so elevated. As you scramble around, dodging the layers of the elevator, you feel in danger. Action sequences is where immersion all comes together, and where you unlock the final piece of the immersion puzzle. Flow state is described as the mental state of operation in which a person performing an activity is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, full of involvement, and enjoyment of the process of the activity. That's a quote from Adams State University in Colorado in an essay regarding flow. Flow does not just contain to video games, as explained in the quote, but I believe, especially when it comes to video games, it's what makes or breaks your immersion. The best thing about flow, and immersion as a whole, to me, is that when you notice you're immersed, the entire feeling is gone. That's because the game is and should be your center of attention. Flow is used to the game developer's advantages to create not only immersive experiences, but allow character development and allow your choices to feel real. If your favorite character dies because of a decision you elected to make, their death hurts even more, because you automatically feel responsible. Take Beat Saber for an example. It takes hand-eye coordination to an extreme. Blocks are flying at you at miles per second, and, especially in the higher levels, it's easy to be overwhelmed. But after a few tries and letting muscle memory take over, you barely even have to look at the notes that are flying at you. You just swing with beautiful precision, matching the speed and rhythm of the song. It's no longer about thinking about what you should be doing, but letting your body think about what it needs to do. Games have gone a long way since the 8-bit days over 40 years ago. Back then, the majority of what you were supposed to see was in your imagination. Nowadays, with beautiful graphics in games such as Ghost of Tsushima and even Cyberpunk 2077, games are designed to be immersive experiences. It's no wonder why games are focusing more on stories and being more like movies than games. This shift started to happen in the PS3 and Xbox 360 days, where there was a significant jump in hardware performance that allowed developers to focus more on story-based games, such as Mass Effect. While I can't say from experience, having not owned an Xbox One console, I believe the general consensus is that Sony and the PlayStation 4 won the console generation purely off of their sheer quality of first-party story-driven games. Take a second to think about that. They had The Last of Us, God of War, Spider-Man, The Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, Horizon Zero Dawn, Bloodborne, Uncharted 4, the Nathan Drake Collection, The Last Guardian, Neo 1 and 2, Detroit Become Human, and Death Stranding, all on the same platform. That's not even all of them, and it's pretty incredible if you ask me. And their lineup for the PlayStation 5 keeps getting better and better by the day. Overall, the gaming industry has shifted towards two categories: very fun and easily replayable multiplayer games, and what I like to call interactive movies, where they technically give the player full control of their actions with their character layouts and giving them a lot of choices. Most of the stories are still linear, with some major exceptions. The technology in which people play their games is also shifting to new immersive heights. Virtual reality hardware is getting better and better by the day, with rumors that the Oculus Quest 2 will add support for 120Hz refresh rates by the summer. To me, this is great news. The multi-$1,000 entry points for enthusiast VR gaming is no more. A $300 entry fee is worth the hours of virtual fun you will have. The need for a fancy gaming PC, an entirely empty room, and a $700 headset that was a pain to wear is no more. The Oculus Quest was a large improvement, coming in at only $400, but it was still lacking in several areas. But the price drop and the improvements of the Quest 2 make it the only VR headset that I even consider recommending. And trust me, I own both the Quest 1 and 2, and when I say the improvement is worth it, I really mean it. Sony and the PlayStation 5 are also making huge leaps towards even better immersion. An incredibly fast SSD means that immersion-breaking load times are a thing of the past. The Pulse 3D headset creates insanely good surround sound with a flick of a switch and a press of a button. I could be praising Sony for their innovations all day, but how could I do that without talking about their DualSense controller? It's honestly worth the price of the console to me, and that's really saying something. While the people over at Microsoft are definitely making strides in their technological departments, with a heavy focus on xCloud and Game Pass, Sony is making the real difference in changing how games are played. While I'm all for providing mobile gamers the ability to play the same great titles, I am way more in favor in creating the ultimate gaming ecosystem. With the PlayStation VR 2 all but announced, I have no doubt that the PS5 will dominate this generation as well. While failed services such as Stadia are barely clinging on to life, I believe that the general foundation is there for something amazing. It's just a matter of time before the right company gets their hands on the technology. Personally, if anyone is not going to be Apple, Amazon, or Google, but the ones who have been in the industry, Sony and Microsoft. While PlayStation Now is a good start, Microsoft is actively working to improve its accessibility while working on xCloud, and having dedicated Game Pass for Android. Imagine a future where you can stop playing the latest hit on your Xbox, grab a self-driving Uber, and pick up right where you left off while going on your way to grab lunch. I also stand by the fact that the Nintendo Switch Lite is objectively a good idea. While I think the regular Switch is a better deal, a bigger screen and docking capabilities for only $100 more, you can't deny that people like being able to take a small tablet with them and play their entire library of wonderful games. It's hard to imagine being able to play such wonderful games as Breath of the Wild and The Witcher 3 while grabbing coffee or waiting in an egregiously long line. And yet, dozens, probably even thousands of games are ready to be pulled out of your pocket. Mobile phone ports of games are also steps in the right direction. While they're probably not as in-depth as the console counterparts, being able to play some of the greatest multiplayer games on the market, even in simplified versions, is astounding. Imagine being able to yell at your terrible team in League of Legends while bothering people in a coffee shop. The future's now, my friend. All of the advances in technology can revolutionize how games are played, and allowing more people to get lost in game worlds is simply amazing. I feel like rambling about how the technology works would cause this video to go by simply far too long, and it's a whole other topic anyway. So sure, video games can be incredible ways to hang out and socialize with your friends, even strangers, a vehicle to drive creativity and education, as well as just a fun hobby. Deep down, no matter how you phrase it, they're the perfect form of entertainment. With games getting more and more accessible, they're truly one of the greatest storytelling methods. Sure, you can get immersed in the latest Marvel blockbuster, but what if you could be the Avengers? On second thought, maybe let's stick to original creations for now. Good controls, innovative hardware, and core game design all combine to make the most immersive and entertaining creative medium in all of history, and for a relatively low price. I mean, seriously, you could spend $60 for you and maybe 2 friends to go see a movie, plus maybe 20 more in concessions. Or you could spend $60 or cheaper and get endless hours of fun for you and maybe a couple of friends. I mean, Minecraft is only $30, and that's a sandbox game. Virtually endless entertainment. When Immersion is done right, it only shows how good video games can be as a medium, and that's why it's my favorite. Feeling like you are a character, making an impact on an ever-evolving world around you, is a feeling that can only be described as magical.